Have you ever felt a strange kind of emptiness in the midst of constant connection? An ache that rises not from loneliness, but from the overwhelming noise of a world that never stops speaking? It's the quiet fear that your soul is slowly dissolving into an ocean of notifications, endless scrolling, and relentless digital chatter. You pick up your phone to silence the restlessness within you, but instead it becomes louder, more unsettled, more demanding. And in that moment, a quiet whisper emerges from somewhere deep inside you. I'm losing something, but I don't know what it is. That whisper is the last fragment of your sacredness trying to reach you. The fragment that knows you weren't born to be a node in a machine, an avatar in a feed, a pulse in the algorithm. And yet here we all are, caught in a strange paradox where the very things designed to connect us have pulled us farthest from ourselves. It's almost cosmic in its irony. Humanity has spent thousands of years seeking a doorway to the divine through ritual, through silence, through nature, through introspection. And suddenly, within a single generation, we found a different kind of doorway, a glowing screen that promises connection, promises meaning, promises stimulation. But what if this doorway leads us not deeper into our own consciousness, but further away from it? What if the portals we carry in our pockets are more like mirrors that reflect everything except our inner truth? We have mistaken illumination for light, speed for direction, movement for purpose. And somewhere along this accelerated path, a subtle fracture appeared in our relationship with ourselves. Every day the world becomes louder, faster, more immersive, and you, this timeless being with ancient memories coded into your DNA, are expected to adapt, to accelerate, to compete with machines that never sleep. Your attention has become a commodity, your curiosity a battlefield, your inner stillness an endangered species. And yet, the modern world tells you that this is progress, that you should be grateful, that you should stay connected at all times. But no one mentions the cost. No one talks about the erosion of inner space, the disappearance of stillness, the dilution of authenticity. When was the last time you felt awe without rushing to record it? When was the last time you experienced silence without immediately trying to fill it? When did you last sit with yourself, truly sit, without a screen mediating your awareness? Something has been stolen from you, but it wasn't taken, it was surrendered. Slowly, quietly, almost imperceptibly. Like sand slipping through your fingers, your sacredness drifted away into the background hum of the digital world. Not because you are weak, but because you are human. And the modern world has learned exactly how to bypass human defenses through speed, through convenience, through addictive loops. We've become travelers wandering through a desert of stimuli, dehydrated for meaning, for depth, for presence. And until you become conscious of this, the desert only expands. But here is the astonishing truth. Sacredness has not disappeared. It has only been drowned out. It waits in the quiet gap between your breaths. It hides behind the noise you've grown accustomed to. It lingers in the spaces you ignore. It's still there, untouched, patient, but you cannot access it by accelerating. You cannot rediscover it by scrolling. Sacredness does not compete with noise, it withdraws from it. Want to feel it again? You must step into the threshold where the modern world cannot follow, the territory of your own awareness. This is where the paradox becomes clear. We are hyper-connected externally, yet profoundly disconnected internally. You can message someone across the world in seconds, but you cannot send a message to your own subconscious without navigating through layers of distraction. You can access infinite data, but you struggle to access your own intuition. You are updated, notified, pinged, reminded, but rarely do you feel alive. Somehow, the more digitally connected we became, the more spiritually starved we became. It's as if the architecture of the digital age was designed not to elevate human consciousness, but to scatter it. And yet, humans are not designed to live in fragmentation. We are wired for meaning. We are built for presence. We carry thousands of years of ancestral memory that understands the language of silence, the rhythm of nature, the architecture of wonder. So when you feel overwhelmed by the endless noise, it is not a malfunction. It is a signal that your consciousness is rejecting the artificial pace imposed upon it. A signal that your mind is calling you back to its natural ecosystem. A signal that your soul is demanding reclamation. Somewhere in the depths of your being there is a sanctuary, a secret room untouched by algorithms, untouched by opinions, untouched by the world's demands. But most people never find it because they are constantly distracted by the surface level noise of digital reality. To enter that sanctuary, you must learn to recognize the difference between stimulation and nourishment, between noise and signal, between connection and communion. The screen can connect you, but it cannot awaken you, it cannot deepen you, it cannot reveal the parts of yourself that exist beyond language, beyond expectation, beyond performance. You see, the real danger is not that technology distracts you. The real danger is that it convinces you that distraction is normal, that constant stimulation is normal, that your attention should always be in motion. But sacredness requires stillness. Sacredness requires slowness. Sacredness requires the courage to confront what lies beneath the noise, and most people never do. Because silence reveals truths that convenience tries to hide. Silence forces you to meet yourself without filters, without edits, without escape routes. And many people are terrified of that meeting. But if you are listening to this, it means something. Inside you has already begun to awaken. That ancient whisper is becoming louder. You can feel the imbalance. You can feel the disconnection. You can feel the yearning for something deeper, something real, something sacred. And that yearning is your compass. It is your guide back to the forgotten parts of yourself. Because the truth is, the sacred doesn't reside in some distant temple or mystical place. It begins in the simplest spaces. Your breath, your awareness, your attention, your presence. But to access it, you must reclaim control over the one thing the modern world is desperately trying to steal, your consciousness. Every moment you spend immersed in meaningless noise is a moment you drift farther from your own essence. But every moment you pause, breathe, observe, and return to yourself is a moment you reclaim your sacredness. The digital world feeds on your attention. The sacred world waits for your awareness. One drains you, the other transforms you. The choice, whether you realize it or not, is being made every minute of your life. This is where the journey begins, not with abandoning the modern world, but with learning to navigate it without losing yourself. Not with rejecting technology, but with refusing to let technology dominate the architecture of your mind. You are far more ancient, far more complex, far more magnificent than the devices that demand your time. And if you learn to listen closely beneath all the noise, you will hear the truth rising within you. You were never meant to be wired to the world. You were meant to be connected to your own consciousness. As you begin to reclaim that awareness, something remarkable starts to shift inside you. The noise that once seemed overwhelming begins to lose its authority. The impulses that once dictated your actions begin to soften. The endless craving for stimulation slowly dissolves into a quieter, more stable presence. It is here, in this subtle shift, that you begin to sense how deeply the modern world has shaped you without your consent. You start to notice how much of your life has been lived in reaction rather than intention, in acceleration rather than depth, in consumption rather than creation. And once you see it, you cannot unsee it. The architecture of your inner world, once cluttered, fractured, and overrun by digital intrusions, begins to reorganize itself around a more ancient rhythm. A rhythm older than civilization, older than language, older than time as we understand it. It's almost as if your consciousness remembers something the modern world has taught you to forget. It remembers the weight of silence. It remembers the taste of presence. It remembers the sacredness woven into existence long before the first screen ever lit up. And as you reconnect with that memory, the world around you begins to transform. Not because it has changed, but because you are finally seeing it without the fog of constant stimulation. Colors look deeper, sounds feel fuller, moments stretch wider. You begin to experience the same reality in a completely different dimension. What was once ordinary becomes luminous. What was once background becomes essential. This is the point where the hyper-connected world can no longer dominate your inner landscape. You see through its illusions with a clarity that cannot be reversed. You understand how the machinery of constant noise was never designed to elevate your consciousness, but to fragment it, to scatter it, to pull it in 1,000 directions that lead nowhere. In this newfound clarity, you begin to choose differently, not because someone told you to, but because your own awareness has risen above the fog. You start curating your attention the way ancient cultures curated sacred spaces, not rushed, not careless, but with intention. Each moment becomes something you protect rather than something you trade away. You begin to realize that your attention is not just a mental resource. It is the gateway through which your entire experience of life is shaped. And once you realize this, you stop giving it away so easily. You stop letting the world hijack your inner state with pings, vibrations, and digital frequencies. You stop being a passive participant in your own consciousness. Instead, you begin to direct your awareness toward things that nourish rather than drain you. You find small rituals without naming them rituals. Simple acts that pull you back into your body, back into your breath, back into your being. You notice the ground beneath your feet and the sensation of air as it moves through your lungs. You begin to feel the difference between living on the surface of your mind and sinking into its deeper waters. There is a richness here, a density, a texture that no digital experience can replicate. As this inner shift strengthens, you start recognizing how deeply the digital world influences not only your thoughts but your emotions, your dreams, your desires. You begin to see how easily the mind imitates what it consumes. If it consumes noise, it becomes noisy. If it consumes chaos, it becomes chaotic. If it consumes shallow stimulation, it forgets how to feel depth. Awareness reveals this not as judgment, but as understanding. And once you understand your own psychological architecture, you begin building a different kind of relationship with reality. A relationship built not on constant external input, but on the rich, unmediated presence of your own consciousness. This presence becomes a sanctuary inside you, a refuge from the velocity of modern life, a sacred territory no algorithm can invade. When you dwell in this presence, even for a moment, you experience something extraordinary. Your mind stops collapsing inward and begins expanding outward. Ideas feel spacious again. Thoughts slow enough for you to hear their subtle layers. Creativity, which had been suffocated under digital noise, begins to move again like a river freed from blockage. The deeper you travel into that presence, the more you realize how much of your potential was never lost. It was simply buried under the weight of continuous distraction. You begin to see your inner world as something vast and alive, not a chaotic echo chamber shaped by external noise. There are landscapes within you waiting to be explored, insights waiting to be uncovered, truths waiting to be remembered. Once your attention is no longer stolen by the world, it returns home to its natural function, to perceive, to contemplate, to imagine, to awaken. This is where your inner life becomes luminous, not louder, not busier, but clearer. And that clarity begins to change everything. The relationships you maintain start to shift as well. You feel yourself gravitating toward conversations that contain real depth, real curiosity, real presence. The superficial interactions, the quick digital exchanges, the endless stream of messages lose their power over you, not because you avoid people, but because you now seek connection that nourishes your consciousness rather than depletes it. There is a kind of intimacy that only emerges when two minds meet without distraction, without urgency, without the need to perform. You rediscover the ancient human capacity for communion, where presence becomes a language deeper than words. As your awareness sharpens, you start noticing how much of the modern world is built upon speed rather than wisdom. It pushes you to respond quickly, think quickly, live quickly. But wisdom never emerges from speed. Wisdom grows in the spaces where silence meets reflection, where inner stillness meets outer observation. And without realizing it, your consciousness begins to reclaim its rightful position, not as a servant of technology, but as the architect of your reality. You begin treating your inner life as something precious rather than something secondary. You prioritize depth over noise, presence over stimulation, intention over habit. When you touch your phone, you do so consciously, not impulsively. When you scroll, you do so with awareness, not compulsion. When you connect digitally, you choose purpose over distraction. In this state, technology transforms from master to servant. It becomes a tool rather than a tyrant. It amplifies your awareness instead of diminishing it. The more you live from this state, the more you realize that sacredness exists everywhere, not as a mystical concept, but as a quality of perception. It is the way your consciousness meets the world when it is not fragmented by noise. It is the way your attention softens into the present moment without rushing to the next. It is the way your mind expands into subtle layers of experience that were always there but drowned by distraction. Sacredness is not something you seek. It's something you notice when your awareness becomes whole again. And slowly, without effort, without force, without trying to impress anyone, you begin experiencing the world with a kind of reverence, not the reverence of ritual, but the reverence of presence. Every moment reveals its depth when you are no longer running from it. The ordinary becomes extraordinary. The simple becomes profound. Life begins to shimmer with the quiet intensity of something ancient and alive. It's not that the digital world disappears. It's that it loses its power to shape your inner experience. You become the center of your own consciousness again, rather than a scattered reflection of external noise. And in that state, the hyper-connected world can no longer pull you away from yourself. Your attention becomes intentional. Your awareness becomes sovereign. You begin to move through life with the quiet confidence of someone who has rediscovered the sacred within themselves, without needing to escape the modern world, without needing to reject it, simply by remembering who you were before the noise began. As this remembrance deepens, a new kind of intelligence awakens within you, not the sharp, reactive intelligence shaped by constant input, but a slower, more ancient intelligence that emerges from presence itself. It's the kind of awareness that doesn't rush to interpret, doesn't scramble to respond, doesn't fracture itself into 1,000 scattered impulses. Instead, it observes, it witnesses, it breathes, and from that inner stillness, a different version of you begins to take shape. Not a digital persona, not the reflexive patterns conditioned by the modern world, but your original consciousness, unfiltered and undiminished. You can feel it rising like a tide that had long been held back, now reclaiming the shores of your inner world one silent wave at a time. This shift reveals how profoundly the quality of your inner life determines the quality of your outer experience. When your mind was scattered, the world felt chaotic. When your attention was fragmented, everything felt overwhelming. But now, as your awareness becomes whole again, the world seems to slow down with you. Suddenly, what once felt urgent loses its grip. The noise that once dictated your emotions becomes background. The digital world, once so consuming, becomes just one layer of reality instead of the only lens you see through. You begin moving at the pace of your own consciousness instead of the pace of the machine. This internal transformation quietly reshapes everything you touch. Your choices become deliberate. Your movements become intentional. You stop trying to keep up with a world that doesn't know how to rest. Instead, you create your own rhythm, your own pace, your own sanctuary within the storm. And strangely, when you stop chasing the world begins to align with you. Interactions feel richer because you are fully present for them. Moments feel meaningful because you are not rushing past them. Even the simplest experiences, sunlight on a wall, the sound of distant wind, the rhythm of your own footsteps, take on a quiet radiance. As you deepen into this new presence, the nature of your desires also begins to change. The cravings shaped by constant digital stimulation lose their intensity. The need for instant gratification fades like old static dispersing from the air. You find yourself no longer hungry for noise, but hungry for depth, no longer drawn to the fast and shallow, but to the slow and meaningful. You begin seeking experiences that expand your awareness rather than dull it. You seek conversations that elevate your mind rather than drain it. You seek relationships that bring you into the present moment rather than pull you out of it. And with this shift, you begin noticing something extraordinary. The sacredness you thought was lost was never gone. It was simply covered by layers of distraction. As those layers dissolve, the sacred reveals itself everywhere, in the rhythm of your breath, in the pause between thoughts, in the way light reflects off a surface you never truly noticed, in the subtle sensations of being alive in this moment, on this earth, in this body. Sacredness shows itself not as something rare, but as something omnipresent, a quality of perception rather than a destination you must reach. The more clearly you see this, the more you realize that sacredness is woven into the fabric of ordinary life, but it can only be seen through a mind that has reclaimed its stillness, a mind that is no longer hijacked by the constant tug of digital currents, a mind that has learned to pause, to observe, to feel, to inhabit the present without escaping it. And as you settle into that presence, you begin to sense how precious your attention truly is. It is not merely a mental resource. It is the doorway through which consciousness experiences its entire reality. Wherever your attention goes, your life follows. And now, for the first time in a long time, your attention is returning home. This shift gives rise to a new sense of power within you. Not the loud, aggressive power that seeks control, but the quiet, grounded power that comes from inner sovereignty. You no longer seek validation and constant connection. You no longer feel compelled to announce your presence to the digital world. You no longer measure your worth through numbers, notifications, or engagement. Instead, you begin to measure your life through depth, through presence, through meaning. You recognize that your consciousness is worth protecting, that your inner world is worth cultivating, that your attention is worth defending, and with this protection comes clarity. You begin to see the structures of the digital world for what they are, a set of tools that can either liberate or enslave your awareness depending on how you use them. Stop participating in the unconscious momentum that drives people to endlessly scroll, endlessly consume, endlessly compare. Instead, you use technology with intention. You engage with purpose. You choose what enters your mind with the same care you would choose what enters your home. And with each conscious choice, you reclaim another piece of yourself that had long been scattered across the digital landscape. This reclamation begins transforming your emotional world as well. Where there was once a persistent undercurrent of restlessness, you begin to feel grounded. Where there was a subtle tension created by constant stimulation, you begin to feel spaciousness. Where there was anxiety born from comparison and overload, you begin to feel clarity. Emotions that once surged uncontrollably begin to soften. The nervous system, long overstimulated by the velocity of modern life, begins to settle into its natural rhythm. You feel less reactive, less overwhelmed, less fragmented. In its place, you feel centered, observant, awake. This awakening gives you access to deeper states of awareness that were previously inaccessible. Insights arise spontaneously as if they were waiting beneath the surface for the noise to quiet. Creativity resurfaces in ways that feel effortless and organic. You feel more attuned to the subtleties of your own intuition, more connected to the quiet voice inside you that has been drowned out for years. This intuitive clarity begins guiding you in ways that logic alone never could. You start navigating life not just with thought, but with inner knowing. And perhaps the most profound shift of all is the way you begin to experience time. In the hyper-connected world, time always feels scarce, compressed, insufficient. But as presence expands, time expands with it. Moments stretch into something fuller, richer, more alive. You realize that time was never the issue, attention was. The more present you are, the more time you feel you have. The less fragmented your awareness becomes, the more life you are capable of experiencing. And this change transforms the very structure of your reality. With each passing day, you feel yourself becoming more whole. Not because the world outside has changed, but because you have changed the way you meet it. You move with more clarity, more intention, more reverence. You begin living not as a passenger pulled by the currents of the digital age, but as a conscious participant shaping your own experience. And in that shift, you rediscover the sacred nature of your own being, quiet, powerful, unshakable. As this wholeness grows inside you, something extraordinary becomes undeniable. You are no longer operating from the fragmented consciousness the modern world conditioned into you. You're living from a deeper center, an inner axis that cannot be shaken by the chaos outside. This center isn't something you create. It's something you uncover. It was always there, waiting beneath the noise, beneath the scrolling, beneath the restless search for connection in a world that does not understand what genuine connection truly means. Now that you've returned to it, the landscape of your inner experience looks radically different. You notice that the world still moves with the same frantic speed, but you no longer internalize its pace. Notifications may still arrive, information may still flood the digital horizon, but your awareness does not scatter anymore. You observe everything from a vantage point you never had access to before, a vantage point where you can see the machinery without becoming part of it. The modern world pulls at you, but you no longer respond automatically. You are moving consciously, deliberately, as if each moment contains its own gravity that pulls you deeper into presence. And in that presence, you begin to understand something profound about sacredness. It cannot be found by escaping the world, nor by abandoning the machinery of modern life. Sacredness emerges from the quality of your perception, not from the absence of technology. It is the way you inhabit the moment, the way you breathe into the spaces between thoughts, the way you return to yourself even when the world tries to pull you away. You begin to see that sacredness is not a destination, but a practice of remembering again and again who you are beneath the noise. As you deepen into this remembering, you start recognizing how many parts of yourself were never truly given the space to exist. Your curiosity was stifled by speed. Your creativity was suppressed by distraction. Your intuition was overshadowed by constant external influence. But now, with awareness reclaimed, these parts of you start emerging like long-forgotten seeds finally given sunlight. You notice yourself imagining more freely, thinking more originally, perceiving more vividly. The inner worlds you once ignored begin to feel expansive again. You remember what it feels like to be a conscious being rather than a digital participant. And something else awakens with this realization, a quiet responsibility. Not a burden, not a task imposed by guilt or pressure, but an inner responsibility that arises naturally when you see clearly, the responsibility to protect your consciousness, the responsibility to nourish your mind, the responsibility to live in a way that honors the depth you've rediscovered. This is not about rejecting technology or becoming detached from modern life. It's about understanding that your awareness is the most sacred thing you possess, and everything you allow into it shapes the reality you inhabit. The more you feel this truth, the more intentional you become. You begin consciously designing the architecture of your inner world. You question what deserves your attention and what doesn't. You choose what enters your awareness with the same care as choosing what you breathe into your lungs. You realize that your consciousness is a garden, one that can easily become overgrown with weeds if not tended with presence. But tended with intention, it becomes something luminous, something expansive, something unshakably alive. And that aliveness begins to influence the lives of those around you. People can sense when someone is truly present. It's felt in the way you listen, the way you speak, the way you inhabit the moment without rushing past it. Your presence becomes a kind of refuge for others, an anchor in a world full of fragmentation. They gravitate toward it, not because you are louder, but because you are silent in a way that awakens something in them. Your calm does not make you passive. It makes you powerful in a way the digital world cannot replicate. This is the quiet impact of reclaiming sacredness. You become a living contrast to the world's unconscious acceleration. You begin carrying a different frequency, a frequency of depth in a time of superficiality, a frequency of awareness in a time of distraction, a frequency of inner stillness in a time of constant stimulation. And even though you may not speak this transformation aloud, people around you feel it. They notice the clarity in your eyes, the steadiness in your presence, the groundedness in the way you meet life. You become a reminder of something they've forgotten within themselves. As this transformation anchors itself in your being, the nature of your choices begins to evolve. The things you chase begin to shift. The illusions you once believed begin to dissolve. You realize that much of what the modern world sells as success is built on exhaustion, disconnection, and endless striving. But your consciousness no longer gravitates toward those illusions. It seeks something more authentic, something aligned with the deeper intelligence you've reclaimed. You begin choosing experiences that nourish your spirit, relationships that reflect your truth, and paths that lead you toward expansion rather than depletion. And through all of this, one truth becomes unmistakable. Sacredness is not fragile. It does not need protection from the world. It needs participation. Sacredness thrives when you engage with life from your center. It expands when you bring awareness into ordinary moments. It flourishes when you breathe presence into spaces where others have forgotten how to be present. Sacredness is not something delicate to be hidden away. It is something powerful that reshapes everything it touches from the inside out. You start to see how easily the modern world confuses movement with meaning. People rush through life at speeds. The human nervous system was never designed to sustain, believing that acceleration leads to fulfillment. But you've discovered something different. Meaning emerges in the spaces where you slow down, where you pay attention, where you return to the rhythm of your own being. You realize that the most profound moments often happen in stillness, not because nothing is happening, but because you are finally awake enough to notice everything that is. And then, as the layers of distraction continue falling away, you arrive at the central realization that underlies this entire journey. The sacred is not separate from your lifestyle, your technology, your relationships, or your responsibilities. The sacred is the essence you bring to these things. It is the quality of your consciousness as you move through life. It is the way you inhabit your existence, not the environment you inhabit it in. Sacredness is a lens, a presence, a way of seeing that reveals the depth woven into every moment. This understanding marks the beginning of a profound shift in how you navigate the hyper-connected world. You no longer feel the need to escape it, resent it, or battle against it. Instead, you participate in it consciously, shaping your relationship with it through awareness rather than habit. You use technology without being used by it. You engage with information without drowning in it. You connect digitally without abandoning your inner presence. You move through the modern world with the steadiness of someone who has located the center that the world cannot shake. And now, with this clarity alive in you, the conclusion becomes inevitable, not as an ending, but as a revelation. You were never disconnected from sacredness, you simply forgot how to perceive it. You were never stripped of inner depth. It simply became obscured by noise. The sacred was never outside you, it was never lost, it was never taken. It was waiting for a moment when you would grow tired of the surface level world, tired of the compulsions, tired of the noise, and finally turn inward. And now you have reclaimed the doorway to your own awareness, the pathway back to the intelligence that existed long before the digital world began shaping human attention. You have rediscovered the stillness beneath the chaos, the clarity beneath the confusion, the sacredness beneath the noise. You have awakened the part of yourself that the modern world cannot manipulate, cannot distract, cannot diminish. This is your return to depth, your return to presence, your return to meaning, your return to the ancient intelligence woven into your being, your return to the sacred that has been waiting for you all along. And from here forward, the hyper-connected world may still hum around you, but it can never again drown out the voice you've reclaimed within yourself.